Here this weekend, huh?
They killed it in karaoke.
Okay, we had a blast. I know we learned a lot from those guys. They trained us and told us kind of what we got going on as far as training and sales and kind of the direction we're going. But I wanted to get in the heart of things, Kurtis, today about why grease interceptors and why hydromechanical versus gravity style interceptors. So let's start off with that. Why would somebody want to use hydromechanical interceptors versus a gravity style grease interceptor?
Man, that's an outstanding question, Zed. So typically, gravity and what we call concrete grease interceptors have been around since the inception of grease interceptors. I don't know if you know this, Zed, but the first patented grease interceptor was 1884.
No shit.
Nathaniel T. Whiting. Not a lot has changed since then, until Shear came along. So actually Shear is a HDPE, which is high density polyethylene grease interceptor, and we are certified. So we can actually have certified grease capacity numbers, and that's the big difference between hydromechanical and gravity grease interceptors. We call those elephant coffins. You just put them in the ground, they tend to corrode and break up over the years, and they can't really tell you exactly how much grease capacity they hold.
Well, that kind of sucks. So who needs to have a grease interceptor, and who mandates that they need them?
All right, so we call them the AHJs. Those guys are the kings, authorities having jurisdiction. So Texas is a little bit different. We have to go to each municipality and get their blessing, even though we have all the code standards with Shear. We want to make sure those guys are happy with what we're putting in their city, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they don't like change. They've used concrete for years. Concrete's still the king, but we're catching up with them really fast, Zed.
Nice. So who has to put a grease interceptor in?
All right, so any restaurant, any school, we're even going into residential now. Shear has something new they're working on. I don't think we can talk about it yet, but we're going to be in the residential market soon with grease interceptors.
I heard that kind of the red flag on any projects, if they have a 3-compartment or commercial equipment on the schedule for any project, that's like an automatic, you need a grease interceptor. Have you heard that before?
Say that again.
So I heard that anytime they have a project and there's commercial equipment in that building, it's like an automatic red flag. You gotta put a grease trap, because they're assuming that they're gonna do some food prep or whatever. So the cities, that's like their first thing they look for on the schedule or the plans whenever they're the engineers are submitting that stuff into the
not every facility is the same either. They have snow cone stands. Some of these cities have minimum gallon capacities, 500 gallon, 1,000 gallon, just for a snow cone stand.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a lot different from a Mexican restaurant or steakhouse, something like that.
So that's a good question I was thinking about. How do you size these things, and how do you know which one to use whenever we're doing a project?
Great question. So we have to talk with the engineers, talk with the contractors, talk with the GCs. We need to know things like what their line size is going in the building. We need to know how far they're burying it, what type of facility it is. Again, I said it could be a snow cone stand, it could be a school. Those are two very different type of facilities. We need to know how far they're wanting to bury it. Is it going to be traffic rated? Are they putting it in a traffic area? Because we offer traffic rated tops. We do have something called Grease Monkey too on the Shear website. I'd like to steer some people to that. We have over 10,000 users in the Grease Monkey now, and mostly engineers, which you call on Zed a lot.
And some contractors too.
Some contractors use them, but that continues to grow every year, and you can size up a grease interceptor as long as you know the fixtures leading into that grease interceptor, what type of facility it is, how many meals per day. You can size up one of those in less than 5 minutes.
Nice. So, we talked about sizing and designing. Can contractors go on the site, design it, and purchase these things?
Certainly. So we actually have what's called pioneer distributors across Texas. Those guys are kings with local stock. Shear requires a certain amount of stock so that we have the grease interceptor on the ground when they need it. We also have national people that we work with from Shear, certain restaurants that are exclusive to us, and they get a special deal. But if you want to pick up an interceptor, sometimes concrete is a long lead time nowadays, so Shear's ready to go right there on the ground.
That's awesome. The reason I asked is a lot of times in our work that we do, the contractor's so influential in deciding whether to go gravity or hydromechanical or this drain or that drain. How influential in your experience are the contractors when deciding to go park or maybe one of our grease traps?
Man, we love contractors. So we call them those guys all the time. They make the key decisions. They work with the GCs. They work with the owners. Those owners trust those contractors and their opinion on grease interceptors. And once you put in a shear, you don't tend to use anything else.
Oh, that's what I heard. But what do contractors like most about using our stuff versus the concrete?
I'd say ease of install, local stock. If you have a concrete unit, those things can weigh upwards of over 20,000 pounds. They got to have a crane on site. A lot of liabilities for those contractors putting it down in the hole. Sometimes these guys can pick up one of these units with two people, put it in the hole, and a lot less liability there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I also heard, scheduling can be difficult too with concrete because, you got to schedule with the guys and it could be 3 or 4 weeks. And as you mentioned earlier, since it's in stock, the contractors go pick it up that same day, drop it in the hole. It doesn't hold up anything. This always comes up in conversations with engineers. Well, what's the cost difference from concrete and hydromechanical? But when you start thinking about, okay, how much dirt do they have to haul off now? Scheduling, when you start thinking about cranes and safety on the job site, all that starts to add up to dollars, and I think the contractors have figured out that hydromechanical is the way to go, even if they go with the 1,500 to our 250 or 2,000 concrete versus our 500, it still comes out cheaper. Even though the sticker price may be higher with us, the overall cost seems to be less, it seems like.
Yeah, I think, with those minimum gallon capacities in the jurisdictions too, we used to have our GB 250, and that was our workhorse. But we found out we were getting locked out a lot because of those 500, 1,000 gallon minimum gallon capacities. So Shear started making bigger tanks, and so we're up to our GB 1500 now, and that thing can hold upwards of 10,000 pounds of grease. So again, certified grease capacities, those guys can trust that what they're putting in there also has a lifetime warranty. Concrete can't offer you that. It's like a sidewalk. It's going to crack up over time.
It's rock.
It's rock.
That's all it is. Yeah, that's a good point. So if we had, let's say we get a call, inside sales team or somebody, we go to a wholesaler and they show us a concrete grease interceptor and says, hey, can you cross this over to shear? What are some steps that we need to take in order to do it accurately, and kind of walk me through that a little bit?
Again, we need to know if we're approved in that authority having jurisdiction, which I would say we probably have a 80-85% approval rate across the state of Texas. Places like Louisiana, they have a full state approval. It makes it a lot easier on those guys over there. But if they come, they're looking to cross it over. If we know that it's a Park GT 4000, we know that's a 4,000 gallon unit. Typically we got a good crossover chart. Something like our GB 500 could probably handle that. We're looking at grease capacity compared to what their numbers are, or more guesstimates, but we try to pair it up with how much grease capacity they're showing versus what we're showing in a certified grease capacity. But again, I would like to steer you to Grease Monkey just to be sure. You can even put in test on there so that you don't have to click pre-approval by the Shear Pro Ty Cooley there.
Yeah, very nice. Let me ask, what do you think? What do you think is our biggest obstacle in selling hydromechanical grease interceptors?
They've been around for a long time, but to the end user and to the contractor, hydromechanical is still a new concept. It's kind of like PEX or tankless water heaters, still a new concept. So you got to get them to understand that these things are more high efficiency. They can hold more grease capacity. Concrete, again, doesn't offer you that. But Texas has always thought, bigger's better. Let's put in a big elephant coffin out there, and that's going to just take care of everything. We'll forget about it. It's buried, right? So that's kind of what goes back to that.
Excellent. Did you have any questions?
I do, Zed. I wanted to kind of
all right.
poke you a little bit. So
Not too much, please.
That's our engineer pro. That's our engineer pro. What do engineers look for in deciding what interceptors to size?
I think about this. Okay, so what would make an engineer change from concrete to our grease interceptors? The first thing that always comes up is relationship. I think about that because how accessible am I to these people? How accessible if they have a question or if they need to go to get a job done that same day? How accessible am I?
I see you on LinkedIn all the time.
Well, I know, and that's part of it too. Making yourself aware of making people think you're around and they see you more often, and just know that you're in the business. And I think that's one, that the relationship piece is super important. But I also think that knowing exactly what they need and being more of a consultant rather than a salesman.
You're kind of a code expert.
I try to be, but there's always
That brings some
changes.
value to the engineers.
I think so.
Yeah.
Anytime anytime you can take work off their desk and think for them and help them, and they value you as an expert in that field, I think that makes a big difference. So that's really, I guess, the main ingredients there. I'm sure there's other things but I can't think of them right now, honestly.
Do we want to throw out a quick question to the crowd?
Yeah, do we have any audience questions?
Oh, I saw Mr. Keith Mayfield put his hand
All
up
right.
first. He's our 212 winner. Way to go, Keith.
Yeah, give it up for Keith, 212.
We got time for one question, guys. So make
No.
it good, Keith.
They're plastic, do they float?
Oh, that's a great question.
Can I take it or you
Yeah,
got it?
no, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure? No. So they can float, but all grease interceptors, or all interceptors, need to be filled with water. And this is one of the things that guys forget about. When you install any grease interceptor, even concrete, if you don't fill it with water, if a rain comes, that thing's gonna pop up right out of the ground. I've actually been on a job site where the thing pops out of the ground. It's crazy. And so people don't realize that. Now, there are situations where you're in a high water table. So this is something that they'll get with like the geotech guys and structural guys. They know how much, below, where the water table is. And if it's below there, then you're gonna wanna put anchors. For example, like if you're close to the Gulf Coast or something like that. But
We sell something to help with that?
yeah, we do. We have anchor kits. So yeah, so we can sell dead man anchors and stuff like that. And I'm thinking coastal regions or anywhere where they're building and where there's a high water table, and that could potentially cause it to.
You know
float.
that water's not in there too. That grease can't separate like it's supposed to.
Oh no,
do.
you have grease go straight through.
We have something called a diffusion flow technology. So what that does is it actually slows the turbulence of the grease as it comes into that grease interceptor. But we need that water there so that grease can start to separate. If you ever pour baby oil into a bottle of water, you'll see that it actually starts floating to the top. And that's exactly what we do. And we call it an interceptor. It's kind of like football. It's got to catch that grease, and we don't want to go down into the sanitary sewer systems. But yeah, they will float.
Well, Kurtis, most of us don't have baby oil, so I know who does. Though.
Lifetime stock of that.
Well, anyway, no, that's a great point. And the other thing that to answer your question, Keith, a little bit more, what keeps it down, because it's still plastic, the concrete that they pour around it to give it its rating for H20 so that trailers can go over it, that concrete pad that they put around the top also helps keep that down in the ground as well. So you have to, the water in the tank, and then also the concrete that they pour around the lids to make sure that it stays for trucks and 18-wheelers to run over. So, any other questions out there? Mark.
Y'all talk about, competing against concrete, which is your Clarks and your Zerns and your MyFast and your Steels. Who's some on the hydromechanical side?
Oh, okay. So we got a couple of guys that have tried to copycat shear over the years. I think we all face some of that. There's MyFab out there. I would say they're probably I'm sorry. Green Turtle, yeah. So Zern makes one called Green Turtle. Camplast is another one. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have Mark on our next podcast.
Yeah. Good question.
Grease Trap Boys.
We don't have any competition. We're sheer, man.
It comes. Yesterday, I don't know for those of y'all that were in the presentation with Stream, he brought up a good point about, I think they called it moat something. What's it called? Do you remember?
Were you in the meeting?
I was there, but I forgot what it was. Something moat. Like well, anyway, if you got a castle in the middle and you got this moat that's preventing you from getting to the castle, you want that moat to be bigger and bigger. And I guess where sheer is, it's so hard to get to where our level is as far as expertise with other competitors, and they're doing all these other things. We're kind of the leader.
Hey, our inside sales team is our moat. So
yeah, that helps.
I'd like to steer contractors, engineers, to those guys. We've got a quotation department. We got some real pros in here that can help size up shear. We're busy sometimes, Ed. We're out there on the road jacking our jaws and stuff. So those guys are there to help, right?
He's the only one jacking jaws. I'm not jacking. I ain't jacking. Nobody's never mind. Now, thank you, Kurtis, for today. Any other questions before we wrap up? We're about 20 minutes in. Yes, Jessica.
Would you say the lifetime warranty is the biggest selling point on shoes?
I think for the owner it is. Replacement cost after 5 years with steel or 10 years with concrete, oh man, those can get up into thousands of dollars. So definitely lifetime warranty goes a long ways.
Yeah.
We don't have many warranty situations. By the way.
No.
What if the owner sells the building?
Yeah, so that is the only thing, you know, a lot of these guys that are building new projects, they don't really care because they're just building it to sell the building, or it's a tenant lease space, or they don't really, they're gonna go by the dollar. All that matters is the cost of it.
Is that, you know, we're made right here in the good old US of A too?
Where in the US?
Kansas City, Missouri.
What's the street?
Oh, we can't let's not talk about that.
For replacement, if I have a concrete already, will it fit down in the existing hole, or do I have to dig a bigger hole? Like, let's say it's in a tight confined space.
Yeah, ours being hydromechanical and certified grease capacity and being more efficient, actually we use those as concrete vaults sometimes, not that we have to have that, but a lot of times those baffles will break down over years and they'll just drop it right in the same hole. We've got a triple outlet design, so if they wanted to, you know, tie into a different outlet, they can do that. And I see that happen a lot of times, and you know, it's a quicker install. Good question.
All right.
We'll wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Go
Kurt.
to Kurt out.
Yeah, we'll do great. But I had a real quick question. We have a new code compliance guy that helps us call on HJs. Do you know his name? We used to have Eric. This guy named Eric Thompson used to be our go-to guy for code compliance. You know, they would come out and meet with HJs. Do you know who our new guy is?
Jose Galvado. I'm
You're
close.
way off.
No.
You're so off. Well, it is a Mexican name.
That's a great
I'll give
Mexican
him
name.
that. It is a Latino name. I'll give him that. His name is Gonzalo. So y'all probably
So close.
That was not even really close.
Oh, I think that was close. One.
Oh, white people. That was close, right? Juan and Gonzalo is total. Anyway, guys, Kurtis, thanks for joining me today, bud. Great time. Enjoy it. Thanks again.
Go Sooners.